Luthen and Kleya are undoubtedly two of the most interesting Star Wars characters ever. Now, we have a very special video today because my friend Corey from the excellent channel Corey's Datapad has joined us to provide some top-tier analysis. Before we begin, if you like my channel, I guarantee you will like Corey's. There are so many bad YouTubers out there. They just read the wiki or regurgitate people's opinions. Corey knows Legends as well as I do, and he brings a fun political science angle to many of his videos. I mean, the dude invented the most popular Empire at War mod ever. Just watch this one, and if you enjoy it, go subscribe. I've made it really easy. There's a link in the top line of the description or right now in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Click it, it'll go to one of his recent videos I like, and you can subscribe while you're there. Talking privately with him, he doesn't think he'll hit 100,000 subscribers this year. I think, well, we should be able to do it much sooner than that. Anyway, roll it.
Andor has a lot to say about the systems of oppression that operate under the Empire, but it's also been really good at exploring the individual circumstances which push people to rebel, or not, as we looked at in a prior video I did about Perrin. The final 3 episodes of the season, along with their edition of Declassified, continued on with this and gave us a really good look at what motivates Luthen and Kleya. Kleya turned out to be a real highlight for me this season overall, and one of the bigger reveals we had is that it's Kleya who pushes Luthen to be as extreme in his rebellion as he is, rather than the other way around with Luthen influencing Kleya. In the flashback scenes, while Kleya is infiltrating the Lina So Hospital, named after the Supreme Chancellor from the High Republic novels, we learn that Luthen was responsible for the deaths of Kleya's family during the subjugation of her world by the Empire. I initially wasn't entirely sure about the time period on this, whether Luthen was part of the Imperial Army or the Republic Army, since at least to me the gear used in the flashbacks isn't quite as clearly Imperial, but the concept art shown in Declassified does fully confirm he was a sergeant in the Imperial Army, and these scenes really make everything else we know about Luthen fall into place. On the other hand, we also find out that this deserter turned rebel, hidden in plain sight, went to the Team Rocket School of Disguise. All he did was reverse the letters in his original name, Lear, and put on a wig, and he was able to fool the entire Empire with that. But more importantly, his motivation. When we see his first meeting with Kleya, he's drinking during the massacre which killed her family and many others, repeating "make it stop" both in basic and presumably in another language when he's saying Rosh Nelutz. In the background, we, and more importantly Luthen and Kleya, can hear the ongoing massacre, including orders from Imperials for people to get against a wall before hearing more shots, something revisited in one of the later flashbacks where Kleya witnesses another public execution. So, rewatching the monologue from Season 1, talking about how Luthen's given up all chance at inner peace and made his mind a sunless place, I don't think he's just talking about what he's done in service to the rebellion, although that's certainly still a factor. Instead, he's probably at least partially motivated by a feeling of complicity in what the Empire has done. He understands that for the rebellion to be successful, he needs to be able to take extreme actions that he will never be able to get absolution for. But that's probably not something he started out feeling he deserved in the first place. The thing that makes him able to take these actions for the rebellion is that he left the Empire already having decided he was probably beyond redemption. The other key factor here is Kleya herself. Her actress, Elizabeth Dulau, had an interview in Declassified talking about how this isn't truly a father-daughter dynamic, the way many in the audience probably took it originally. For one thing, it's Kleya who really aggressively pushes the need for action, while we see Luthen repeatedly try to give her the option to not go down that path. On Naboo, he presses the button so she doesn't have to, although he was checking if it was a thing she was willing to do. At least at that point, he still thought there was hope for her that there wasn't for himself. She isn't complicit in these things yet the way he is, so she still has an out to find her own sunnier space, which you can find for yourself by subscribing here on Eckhart's Ladder or on Corey's Datapad. And I'll probably undermine this a bit with my own argument later, but I think this might be a sign of how he sees Cassian as well. By the time Cassian fully signs up, he's already done some pretty dark stuff. But it also seems like over time, Luthen kind of drops this requirement for getting other people involved and exploiting them for the purposes of the rebellion. At the very least, though, he still understands the buy-in people who want to be truly involved in the rebellion need to have. Kleya is motivated by the loss of her family, but as Elizabeth also says in that interview, Kleya is aware of the responsibility Luthen holds for what happened to her real family and her people. As much as a kind of love that's sort of like what's between a father and daughter had come to grow between them over the years, it formed around a core of what Luthen had already done to that family. For Luthen, a lot of the motivation to do what needs to be done comes from this responsibility to Kleya, who's not just a skilled asset in the fight against the Empire, but also this space albatross around his neck. She's a constant reminder of what he has to atone for, and what's at stake if the Empire is allowed to continue making people like him do what they did to people like Kleya. But while he initially at least seems to do what he can to give Kleya every opportunity to walk away from the life we knew they were going to lead, he also shows he knows how to use circumstances like Kleya's and his own as a recruiting tool. In his argument with Cassian after Cassian returned from Gorman, they both know how things will end if the Gore rebel. They'll be crushed. But Luthen says at least Gorman will burn very brightly. It's essentially what he did to Kleya, but on a galactic scale. It's fuel for vengeance for the remaining Gore, like what motivated Kleya, as well as waking up even more people to the atrocities of the Empire, and forcing more and more of them to confront their own role in that like he had to do. In my video about Perrin, I spoke about how one of the differences between Perrin and other characters who we actually see join the rebellion is that Perrin's never in a position where he has to actively make a choice between remaining complicit in an obvious, undeniable way, or standing against the Empire. He or someone like him would get to think that they just get to go out and get drunk with Ars Dangor and Sly Moore without that really meaning that they're involved in anything going on. There's not a specific moment where they'd feel like their action or inaction is responsible for what the Empire is doing. But with Luthen, we get to see the moment for that decision. If he hadn't found Kleya, maybe he would have sunk further into his alcoholism as a way to cope with what was going on, but it might not have prompted him into action the same way that finding Kleya did. And now Luthen is trying to create those moments for other people, for as many people as possible, no matter the cost. He's already burned his own decency for someone else's future, and for the rebellion to win, he knows he has to make as many people as possible make that choice as well. On a smaller, less galactic, and more personal scale, we do almost see this dynamic playing out once again with Cyril. He's not just been a big cheerleader for the Empire, he took an active role in setting up the Gorman front to help justify the Empire's incoming crackdown. But the more time he spent with the Gore, the more he seemed to become aware of the means by which the Empire twists facts to manufacture consent for their brutality. He's then completely shocked by the massacre as it starts. Ultimately, unfortunately for him, this realization is a bit too little too late. The sight of Cassian, the person responsible for him losing everything, is too much for him, and he attacks. This leads to his death, but had that not happened, it's possible the Empire was in the process of turning one of their biggest supporters into yet another enemy. The Empire continually creates the tools of its own destruction with each atrocity it creates, and each atrocity it makes other people perpetrate. Luthen and Kleya are perfect examples of that, and it's something we continue to see, even the slightly more sterilized version in the original trilogy. That's all from me though, remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more of the regularly scheduled EK content.